The chandelier glittered overhead, scattering perfect light across the ballroom as my sister Julia stood at the head table, champagne flute in hand. Her wedding gown, custom-made and flawless, sparkled with every shift of the crystal. 200 of the city's most powerful people leaned forward, eager for her speech, about me. Emma, the older sister, the family embarrassment. I smoothed my simple black dress off the rack, not couture, and ignored the subtle pity in the glances cast my way. Aunt Margaret whispered into Uncle Charles's ear. Cousin David's wife smirked, eyes flicking from Julia to me with poorly disguised amusement. They knew what was coming. Julia had rehearsed this heartfelt toast for weeks, a loving but brutally honest tribute to her struggling sister, who never quite found her place in the world. If only they knew. My phone buzzed quietly in my lap. 8:47 p.m. 13 minutes until the embargo lifted. 13 minutes left in my role as the family failure. Before I talk about my wonderful new husband, Marcus, Julia began, her voice smooth and commanding. I want to say something about family, about the lessons we've learned from each other. Here it comes, I thought, sipping champagne that cost more than I'd normally bother with. Marcus Pitanaui sat beside her, the perfect image of wealth and connections, old money, old family, the kind of man my parents had always dreamed their daughters would marry, everything they thought I'd never touch. My sister Emma is here tonight, Julia went on, smiling down at me with rehearsed affection, and I've learned so much from watching her journey. The spotlight shifted, the crowd turned toward me, I returned her smile, slipping easily into the part of the loyal but underachieving sister. Emma has taught me that sometimes it takes many tries before we find our path. She's worked countless jobs, lived in countless little apartments, and struggled through more failed ventures than I can count. Sympathetic murmurs rippled across the room. Poor Emma, Julia said sweetly, still searching at 32. Right now, she calls herself a freelance consultant. She let the words hang like a polite euphemism, living in her cozy studio, driving her old Honda, still chasing startup dreams. Nods of pity, even a headshake from Uncle Charles. They didn't know that my studio was actually a penthouse in a building I owned through a shell company, that my Honda was a decoy while my real cars sat in a private garage, that my so-called failed ventures were deliberate moves, pieces in a larger game. But you know what Emma really taught me? Julia's voice swelled with confidence. She taught me what not to do, that success comes from realistic choices, not impossible dreams. The audience was hooked. Julia was radiant, a picture of beauty and wisdom, and I, the cautionary tale, was her prop. Emma, she finished, lifting her glass higher. I hope being here tonight inspires you to let go of fantasies and embrace reality. To my sister Emma, who never learned success, maybe marriage will teach her what life could not. Glasses began to rise, smiles of pity all around me. And then, right on schedule, the ballroom screens flickered, the wedding slideshow cut out, the hotel's automated newsfeed had been triggered. Breaking news, the anchor's voice cut sharply through the room. Local woman becomes youngest billionaire in state history. The hall went still. 200 heads turned toward the screens. Emma Rodriguez, 32, of downtown Chicago, has been revealed as the anonymous founder and CEO of Quantum Dynamics, acquired today by Meridian Corp. For $4.7 billion. My face filled the screens, not a casual selfie, but a polished headshot prepared months ago for Forbes. Rodriguez secretly built the company over the past 5 years. She will personally net $3.2 billion from the deal, making her the youngest female billionaire in state history. Silence, the hum of the air conditioning, the clink of jewelry as someone shifted in their seat. Julia's glass froze midair. Marcus looked like he'd been struck. My parents stared at me, wide-eyed, breathless. Quantum Dynamics AI systems are currently used by leading banks and investment firms worldwide, the anchor continued, including Marcus Pitanaui's own company, Patton Associates. The blood drained from Marcus's face. When the feed ended, returning to the slideshow, no one was watching wedding photos anymore. Every gaze was on me. I rose slowly, smoothing my black dress. Suddenly, it didn't look frugal. It looked deliberate, elegant. Well, I said lightly into the silence, I suppose the cat's out of the bag. Julia's lips trembled. Emma, how long? 5 years, I answered calmly. Since the Christmas you told me to quit embarrassing the family with my silly computer hobby. I looked out at the crowd, 200 people who had spent the evening pitying me. I'd like to thank my sister for her moving words. She's right, I've learned a lot about appearances, judgment, and patience. Most of all, I've learned that sometimes the best revenge, I let the pause linger, is simply succeeding. Marcus stood abruptly. Emma, if I ever said. You didn't say anything tonight, Marcus, I cut in smoothly. But last month, when you told your golf buddies that Julia was lucky to have one successful sister to balance out the failure, I smiled. That was illuminating. His face drained of color. He must have forgotten that conversation at the country club, the one where he mocked me, never realizing I'd been there, quietly having lunch with a potential investor. I slipped my phone from my purse, scrolling through the flood of messages since the news broke, 47 interview requests, 12 investment proposals, and an invitation to speak at the World Economic Forum. Not a bad way to end a Friday night. Across the table, Julia sank into her chair. The flawless wedding makeup couldn't hide the shock on her face. Her carefully crafted moment of condescension had collapsed in seconds. The acquisition closes Monday morning, I said evenly. Meridian's keeping quantum dynamics independent. With me as CEO. My next venture announcement will follow shortly after. Julia blinked, her glass trembling. You told me that seeing real success might inspire me, I continued, locking eyes with her. You were right. Watching how obsessed this family is with appearances over substance inspired me to build something real, something impossible to dismiss. My phone buzzed again. A message from my assistant. Forbes wants the interview tomorrow morning. Cover confirmed. I rose, gathering my small purse. I should go. Early call with Forbes. Cover story and all that. I leaned down, kissing Julia's cheek lightly. Congratulations on your marriage. I hope Marcus realizes he just married into a billionaire family, though technically, that part comes from me. The ballroom stayed hushed as I walked toward the exit, 200 pairs of eyes burning into my back. At the door, I turned once more. The photographer, scrambling to capture the moment, probably knew he was documenting one of the most expensive humiliations in social history. Oh, and Julia? My voice carried across the room. That cozy little studio you mentioned? I own the building, all 47 floors. Consider it a wedding gift to help you rethink the difference between realistic goals and impossible dreams. The next morning, I sat in my real office on the 45th floor of Meridian Tower. Forbes's interview questions lay open on my desk while my assistant handed me coffee, the same brand I'd been drinking for years, even when everyone thought I couldn't afford better. The calls hadn't stopped. Relatives, former friends, business acquaintances suddenly desperate to reconnect. Most went unanswered, but one message made me smile. Remember when you asked if anyone would ever take your impossible ideas seriously? I think you have your answer. Proud of you. Dr. Sarah Kim. I was drafting my reply when my assistant knocked. Ms. Rodriguez, your sister is here. Julia Peaton. 10:30 a.m. She hadn't wasted time. Send her in. Julia entered, polished and perfect, clutching her purse like armor. Emma, I hope I'm not interrupting. Just reviewing acquisition proposals, I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. What can I do for you? She sat carefully. I came to apologize. The speech, it was meant to be motivational, not hurtful. Motivational? I raised a brow. I thought if I showed you what stability looked like, it might inspire you to follow a safer path. Even now, She framed herself as the successful one offering guidance. "Tell me, Julia," I asked softly, "what do you think Marcus makes at Pete and Associates?" She straightened. "Nearly $500,000 last year, one of their top earners." I tapped my screen. "His firm has paid Quantum Dynamics $847 million in licensing fees over the past 3 years. Marcus's entire career rides on my technology." Her smile faltered. "Your wedding? $300,000. Marcus bragged that it was proof of his success. He didn't mention the catering, the venue, and the florist are all subsidiaries of companies I own." Now her composure cracked. "So when you stood up last night to lecture me about success, Julia, you were using my money to pay for it." She whispered. "I didn't know. How could I have known?" "You didn't know because you never asked. You saw the car, the apartment, and you decided you knew my story." I crossed to the window, looking out at the skyline, half the towers powered by my technology. "But that's not what hurt most. What hurt is that you used your wedding, your happiest day, to humiliate me." Silence. Then, quietly, "I was jealous." I turned. "Jealous? Of you, of your freedom, your risks. I did everything right, grades, career, marriage, expectations. You walked away and built something extraordinary. I told myself my way was better. I was wrong." For the first time in years, I saw my real sister peeking through the polished mask. "You're not wrong that stability matters," I said. "You're wrong that success only looks one way." My phone buzzed again, this time from the aerospace team. "Strategy meeting request. I'm starting something new, quantum aerospace. We're going to revolutionize satellite manufacturing." Her eyes widened. "Space manufacturing?" I smiled. "Want to hear about it?" For the next hour, I laid out my vision. To my surprise, Julia listened, really listened, asking sharp questions about defense contracts and market strategy. Finally, she said, "I have contacts through Marcus's firm, defense, NASA suppliers. If you're serious, are you offering to help?" She hesitated, then nodded. "If you'll let me. I know I don't deserve it, but I'd like to be the sister who supports impossible dreams instead of trying to crush them." I studied her. "There may be a place for you, but not because you're my sister, because you have skills I need. Business development, partnerships. If you come aboard, Julia, you work for me, you follow my vision, and you never, ever undermine me again." She exhaled, smiling for real this time. "Deal." As she left, I reflected. 24 hours ago I was the family failure. Now, the youngest billionaire in state history, considering hiring the sister who once pitied me. Minutes later, Forbes called. "Ms. Rodriguez, congratulations. How did you build a billion-dollar company while your family thought you were struggling?" I leaned back, gazing out at the city I'd quietly conquered. "Simple," I said. "I learned that success isn't about proving anything to others. It's about building something that matters, even if no one understands it." "And what's next for Emma Rodriguez?" I smiled. "The sky isn't the limit anymore. It's just the beginning." Monday's cover read, "The Billionaire Next Door. How Emma Rodriguez Built an AI Empire in Plain Sight." But the real headline came in a text that afternoon. "First day at Quantum Aerospace tomorrow. Thank you for the second chance. Let's build something impossible together." Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge. Sometimes, it's giving people a chance to rise with you. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they take it.